Hi y'all, I'm Alana. I'm today's host, and I run a very small, me, myself, and I, Shopify and Squarespace dev design group. And I started this group about a year ago, actually. I didn't actually kick it off till the fall, but I started it up because there was no other Shopify-specific group in Portland. So I'm really glad that we have this amazing turnout tonight because it's our second meetup, and I'm hoping to continue to grow our community. And today's agenda is fairly straightforward. We're going to have Max talk with us. I have a couple of mini announcements, including some words from our sponsors, and then we'll get right back into Q&A at the end, and then networking. So we're here till 8, but feel free to grab some food as we hear from Max talking today, but don't feel like we can't get up. So first of all, thank you so much to Puppet for hosting us. I was really grateful that they opened up their space to us, because we would not have been able to fit in the original space that we were at, so thank you so much. Restrooms, if you need to use them, if you go back towards the door when you walked in, if you go past the front desk, there is a door on your left. That's where the restrooms are going to be at. And then after tonight, probably tomorrow morning, I'll send out some feedback requests from you. Please do let me know what you like or what you don't like, or how different topics or how we can improve going forward, because I do really want to continue this. And ultimately, we're here because you want to hear the talks that we have. So definitely give us some thoughts on what you want to improve or change. First, a word from our sponsors. So Jordan, can you come on up from CartHook?
Hello, everybody. I am the word from your sponsor. Welcome. I just want to say thank you very much to Alana and to Matt and everyone else who organized. It's very impressive. The first meetup was a fraction of this size, and then number 2 being this size portends well for just the general growth of the community and the group, so congratulations on that. Thank you, everyone, for coming out. I hope you're enjoying the pizza and whatever other benefits, especially from Puppet. Thank you very much. I am Jordan, and I run CartHook with a lot of our team over there. We offer a customizable checkout experience for Shopify stores and soon other platforms. If you're interested in that sort of thing, get in touch with us. Otherwise, enjoy the night. Thank you, Max, for the presentation, and thank you.
Thank you, Jordan. Our other sponsor is Eric Davis of Little Stream Software, the maker of JSON-LD for SEO. He's actually not here tonight, so I'm going to read off something on his behalf if you don't mind. JSON-LD for SEO helps your Shopify store win rich results in Google search, getting you more organic search traffic that converts better, all without having to fight for better rankings or paying for ads. Find JSON-LD for SEO in the Shopify App Store. If you have questions on how to spell that or how to find them, let me know afterwards. Thanks so much. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce Max, our speaker for tonight, and we'll get started.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for coming tonight. And thank you for being flexible as we had to book a different space. I wanted to thank Alana for setting this up. Having a Shopify meetup in town is pretty cool. It's great to see a place where merchants and agencies and software providers within this ecosystem can start to get together and share knowledge. It's pretty awesome to see this type of turnout for this event as well. Also, thank you, Puppet, as well. They helped us save our butts. We needed a new space. So thank you for staying late and staying out here to help us with this event. Just real quick, I wanted to get a quick survey of folks who are in attendance. Can I get a raise of hands of people here who would consider themselves a merchant on Shopify? Okay, cool. And how many of you merchants are, a brand with a few employees or more behind it? Okay, cool. How about agencies? All right. And software providers? Okay, cool. And who's just curious about Shopify or currently building a store? Awesome. So I'll be uploading everything tonight after the talk. It's not up there yet. I got to do that work afterwards, but I'll make sure all the links from some of the resources that I share, some of the stats, facts and stuff like that, you can go to this link, download those. I'll also upload the deck in PDF form if you're curious. And I think we're recording a video too, so that may be available as well. We'll also have time for Q&A afterwards. So if you want to go deeper on a specific topic or something like that, feel free to save that for afterwards. So I want to start with a little bit of a background behind myself, just so you know that some of the stuff that I'm going to tell you today is not total bullshit. So I'm Max, I'm the CEO of Caravel. And what we do at Caravel is basically we're working on a product that makes getting to the why around your customers less tedious. So what we enable you to do is collect customer feedback from the channels that you already have. We limit the amount of surveys that you have to send out, the copying and pasting you have to do from emails, combing through online reviews, social comments, and stuff like that. We automatically collect it all for you, we organize it, and provide deep insights into all of it so you can get a quick understanding of how to act on it. And then we provide a platform for your team to gather around that and collaborate on how to respond to customer feedback. So that's what we do at Caravel. And if you're excited by what we do, we just opened up early access on our site for the product. We'll start releasing our beta in the next few months, and we're kind of rolling in customers, opening up windows of customers. So if you want early access to that product, we'd appreciate it if you go sign up, request early access. We also do customer development very frequently. It takes about 30 minutes if you'd like to chat with us to help inform future product development and help us build a product tailored around you. We'll follow up when you sign up and ask if that's something you're interested in and work on getting that booked. So there's a lot to my background before Caravel, but I'll stick to the quick and relevant parts that are kind of focused around retail and commerce. So before doing this, I was at White & Kennedy Lodge, which I've been there for about 4 years as a director of engineering. And it's now a defunct group that no longer exists, but basically what we did was emergent R&D for brands like Nike, Samsung, Intuit, Soylent, and more. And by emergent, I mean emergent tech, AI, AR, even some robotics as well. And then before that, with my current Caravel co-founder, John, we ran a small agency in town. We were about 7 people. We focused on building e-commerce sites for folks. And at that time, Shopify wasn't as robust as it is. So for the clients that we worked with, Shopify Plus didn't really exist. So a lot of what we did was sort of ad hoc, bespoke, and getting platforms like Spree and stuff like that to work for our needs. And then we also built online marketplaces for startups and helped roll them out. This eventually got acqui-hired sort of by White & Kennedy and helped build up the White & Kennedy Lodge. And even well before that, I was one of the early founding team members of a platform called Elastic. And this was back in the day when B2B commerce was just literally printout catalogs and paper order forms. We were one of the first platforms to digitize that. So when we released it, you'd go to outdoor retailer convention and stuff like that and see brands walk around with tablets with our software installed and placing orders on it and doing digital merchandising. It's still in existence today. It's been acquired about 2 times over, but it's used by brands like Patagonia, New Balance, Snyder, and stuff like that to do B2B commerce. I'm also a machine learning advisor for a hot new startup in Seattle called Downstream. They do automated Amazon advertising. So we use machine learning to help automate your keyword spend and sort of forecast the performance of your Amazon advertising and help you make that more automatic and easier. So a lot of my experience has kind of led through sort of this theme of transforming classic retail processes with software. And that's what I figured I could best speak to today and bring to tonight's meetup. And I want to focus it around a big pain point that is becoming pretty prevalent with the popularity of the direct-to-consumer model. And that's customer retention. So for a merchant, if you're a merchant, customer retention is simply the ability to get customers to come back and buy from you again. And when selling direct to consumer, this is really important in order to actually generate profit. Getting repeat customers and repeat buyers is really something that's important to focus on. And what we see is often early stage merchants that focus on, or kind of hyper-focused on, conversion rates. And while those metrics are important, I think it's often overlooked as to how good of a strategy it can be to actually lean into organic growth and organic referrals and things like that from your repeat buyer to actually scale out your sales channels and actually do so in a method that is much more affordable and has much lower marketing costs associated with it. So oftentimes, I think this narrow focus on conversion rates can be problematic because you tend to not think about a cheaper customer who can actually you can glean value from and help earn more customers from. So when thinking about customer retention, there's a few metrics that really matter that go into measuring that. So one is customer acquisition cost, and what this basically tells you is basically how your marketing is performing, if you're profitable from your marketing. And with the popularity of D2C, what's happening here is this is skyrocketing. It's democratized now to start a brand. It's easier than it has ever been. And what's happening is marketing channels are oversaturated. When that happens, the cost to earn an impression of a customer is much more expensive. So this is sort of like what you're battling against is this rising cost of acquisition. And on the other end of that is AOV, which is average order value. And this is basically what it sounds like. It's just the total average of every order. So what's happening now is, on average within e-commerce, CAC is starting to outpace AOV. So what that means is if a customer comes to your site and they buy only once, it actually costs you money. And that sucks. And that's kind of like the sort of like marketing landscape that you're up against as a direct-to-consumer brand. So what do you do? Well, some food for thought is actually acquiring a new customer can be 5 to 25 times more expensive than retaining one. So my recommendation is actually not to benchmark on conversions, not benchmark on CAC or AOV, but there's a much better metric to look at, and that's CLV, which is customer lifetime value. You may see it framed as LTV or CLTV. It's framed a bunch of different ways. But basically what this tells you is the worth of a customer over the span of a relationship with your brand. Now it's a little bit harder to measure. It's kind of a multi-step process. It's not advanced math, but there's a great Shopify blog tutorial on how to do it, and how to do it purely through spreadsheets. So if you want to just kind of Google Shopify LTV, you'll be able to find it. So having a good CLV metric basically means that you have good customer relationships, and that you're driving value from those brands, or from that relationship for your brand. And the way you achieve this without actually driving up your marketing cost is to focus on what I call the customer value exchange. Now, if you look up this term, you'll see a lot of stuff about sort of giving experiential value to your customers in trade for getting their personal data. That's part of it, but it's not the bigger picture. What it's really about is just understanding what your customers value, and not just thinking about what your brand values, but really placing importance on what your customers value and rewarding them with those values for engaging with your brand. And this is what I mean by customer value exchange. And engagement can happen in multiple forms. It can be the customer leaving feedback with you. It can be writing a review, reading your content. It can be sharing your content, referring, buying a gift, attending an event, or making a big purchase. There's a lot of ways in which you can reward them for engaging. So with this idea of value exchange in mind, I want to dive a little bit deeper into 3 specific topics. First, we'll talk about customer service. We'll talk about how you create a positive customer service experience, and also looking at an interesting thing that's evolving around expanding the role of customer service more into sales. I want to look at customer loyalty programs in specific, and then also sort of more of an abstract concept around building a community, and then talk about customer feedback and why it's important to integrate this into the DNA of your brand. So with that, we'll jump into customer service. So customer service can really define your brand. It can also really prevent it from ever getting traction if it's not done well. So if you're not prioritizing customer service as part of your direct-to-consumer strategy, I would consider the repercussions of not doing that. It's pretty clear that it's really important to do it and to lead to positive customer experiences through it, because when customers have a negative service experience, the data shows that 86% of the time they won't do business with you again. On the flip side of that, 42% of all customers purchased again, and the primary reason behind that was a positive service experience. So it can also be a really good driver for repeat buying behavior. So on average, negative experience will lead to 9 to 15 other people hearing about it. That's how many times a customer will share their negative customer experience with other people. Sometimes it's over 20 people. And they're also much more likely to leave a review if they have a negative experience than a customer that had a positive one. So with all that in mind, it actually takes 40 positive experiences to make up for the damage caused from one negative customer service experience. So it's important. But how do you do it? How do you go about it? What do customers actually value? How do you sort of get to the heart of the customer and get them to love your brand and love the experience they have with it? Well, there's sort of 6 key things you can do that I outlined here, all of which are sort of top priorities for customers when it comes to having an experience with customer service. The first is to make sure that your customer service is competent and knowledgeable. And basically what this means is consider them advocates for your brand. Consider them experts on your brand ethos, your products. Make sure that they communicate in the manner that your brand represents. You can go as far as having customer service try on all your products if you sell apparel products or forward products. Really make sure that they have an understanding of the nuances of different products and how to service customer needs for your brand. The second thing is be compassionate and kind, and that's pretty simple. Just don't be an a-hole. It's pretty easy. The third is convenient hours of operation, and I think this is overlooked quite a bit, but consider this. The most active time of day on average through e-commerce for hourly sessions, that means visitors to an e-commerce site, is between 8 to 9 p.m. And so those are the moments when your basic customers need you the most. And if your online store basically isn't open during those hours, if you're servicing customers 9 to 5, that can be problematic. And especially if they're contemplating a purchase decision and they need to get in touch with somebody, that can make the difference between them buying and them not buying. So commonly, you're starting to see a lot of people offer operational hours from like 9 to 10 or 9 to 9. But a big thing you can do here too is lean into self-service too. If you can't put 24-hour service behind your brand, which is not many people can. So self-service is a great way to offer things like instant answers to common questions that customers have. You can provide a knowledge base for FAQs. You can also put up a self-service return portal, which is, there's plenty of Shopify solutions out there that let you do that. And even automate order status lookup and stuff like that. Those are some of the most common things that customers come to customer service for. And if you can do it through self-service, you should do it, because customers will get mad if they can't when they come to visit your store. So those are just a few ways to sort of help overcome that idea of having more convenient hours of operation. The other big thing is leaning into multiple channels. This has been shown to be sort of a big driver of creating a positive customer service experience. Don't just only offer customer service through email or only through chat. Really make multiple channels available. Help lean into letting the customer engage in a way that is convenient for them. And it's sort of your job to help unify those channels and make sure that on the back end you're sort of combining them into one place so you can respond to all of them in a timely manner. And I'll talk about a few solutions that help you do that. The other big thing is response times. And this is an area where you can actually pretty easily differentiate your customer service from the competition. If you look at email, the average customer expects a 6-hour response time. And only 36 or 34% of brands are delivering on that. The average response time over email is 12 hours. So just exceed their expectations with quick response times there. On social, it's 10 hours, that's the average. Chat is about 2 minutes and 40 seconds, so if you're thinking about offering live chat and you can't respond in a timely manner, I would reconsider offering that. That's sort of like one caveat to having multiple means of contacting, but there's higher customer expectations with response times around chat, so it's just something to sort of get into carefully. And the final point is, it's kind of a big topic, and I want to cover it with a case study actually, is to reconsider the role that customer service plays. That is, consider human-first shopping experiences and integrating the role of the sales associate into your CS roles. So why would you do this? Well, there's been like this big quest to remove all the friction from the online buying process. Amazon has done it better than anybody. Every retailer has followed suit. Brands are following suit left and right. Recommendations, personalization, all over the place. It's really sort of on, human touch points are just being removed from digital. And what's happening is there's this overabundance of choice now. As a consumer, you can choose from more products than you ever imagined, you can shop for more brands than you ever imagined, and it's incredibly overwhelming. And so what's become essential to differentiate within digital commerce is actually offering human assistance throughout the buying process. And so we're seeing this revitalization of the sales associate role within digital commerce, and it can actually be a really awesome tool to help customers make easier choices while they shop your brand digitally and help you really differentiate from the competition. And also that's something that Amazon can never do. So it's kind of like their Achilles heel, right? So one brand that I want to dive into that has done this particularly well. They're not too heavy-handed with it either, so I kind of actually like that. But it's Gemmy. So they're sort of like a luxury shoe brand, but they approach customer service as what they call concierge customer service. So it's very important to them. It's kind of part of their brand values that they really encourage customers to engage with a human. You'll notice all over the site there's very few barriers to speak with somebody. They offer multiple channels of communication, text, chat, email. It's in their main header, it's in their footer, it's in their sort of omnipresent badge that they have. And process-wise, they actually take extra effort to make sure every representative tries on the entire product catalog before they start talking to customers. So they have a really good understanding of how everything fits. So when customers come to them with fit concerns or fit problems, they can understand how to help the customer based on the product they're shopping and be considered an expert on that particular topic. They also really encourage client feedback throughout their customer service interactions. And this is so they can get a finer grained understanding of different customer needs and sort of educate their team on how to service certain customers with specific needs, ultimately to get them to a product that that customer will love. Also notice their hours of operation for the CS is 9 to 9. But what's interesting is that since they've implemented this sort of concierge approach to their customer service, their retention rates are actually 4 times the industry average. So, and they really credit this approach for that increase. So their customers who buy from them again buy an average of 4 times per year. For footwear, the average is 1 shoe per year. So they're doing pretty good. So a lot of this is kind of about process, but there are definitely tools that can help. For example, offering multiple communication channels like I talked about, there's ways to unify that using tools. Also, quick response times, keeping your teams aligned, and offering self-service. So one that I like is Shopify Ping and Chat, mostly because it's free. It's not the best product on the market, but it's a good way to start testing things like live chat and stuff like that without having to take on the burden of the cost of some additional software. It's a native app, so you get native notifications. You're not going to be left with messages in your inbox that you can get notified about. And it comes with Shopify Chat, but the kind of downside is they really only offer integrations with Facebook Messenger, Shopify Chat, and Apple Business Chat. But I think they're expanding that, so we'll see more support coming out over this year. Help Scout is another one. It's more robust. Their price point's great. They have a pretty good Shopify integration. They show you things like orders and customer LTV when you're chatting with customers. They also offer instant answers, a knowledge-based solution, so they're really great for that self-service that we were talking about. And then sort of the top tier one in this list is Gorgeous. It's definitely not the most expensive one, but that's out there. But they're purpose-built for Shopify, and they're probably the most powerful one out of the 3. So they allow you to do things like macros, which are just templates where you can inject personal data, so you're not copying and pasting, and a bunch of other stuff. And they offer integrations with pretty much any popular Shopify e-commerce solution. So it's pretty good. All right, let's talk about loyalty. So I want to talk about 2 things here. Loyalty programs. And so this is where you earn rewards or discounts, even things to access to exclusive products, stuff like that. And also this notion of community, which is basically how to create passionate, emotionally connected customer base. So with both, I figured it's probably best to mostly show case studies, because that's really helpful always, and kind of talk about the strategies of how these particular brands grew around these things, how they took in customer feedback to evolve them, and sort of how it gives them a key advantage in the market. So let's talk about loyalty programs. So how to build a good one? Well, first thing, my first piece of advice would be if you're early or you don't yet have a well-established loyal customer base, don't dive into building out a full-fledged loyalty program out of the gate. You can do small things, like you can bundle discounts, you can do referral programs, stuff like that. But it's generally not an awesome idea if you go into a loyalty program not fully understanding what your customers value and what the value is they're going to get out of it. I've heard from plenty of brands that jump into it and then they don't see the return that they were expecting. In fact, it's costing them more than it's returning. And now they're stuck honoring a legacy rewards platform because they have to shut it down, but they still have to honor the points. So it's just something that go into with intention. Also, there's no magic formula for it. Really, you have to design a loyalty program around your customers. So really invest early on if you're intending to launch a loyalty program and understanding sort of the different tiers of customers you have, what the different lifetime spends are with each customer, and what each tier values the most, and make sure to offer that to them within the loyalty program. And the final thing is Amazon Prime changed the game here. So price, convenience, and free shipping are kind of table stakes. They won't differentiate you much in the market. So it's kind of key to seek out opportunities beyond just price and discounts, or even think about more emotionally rewarding benefits that you can provide through the loyalty program. Things like So simple stuff is like a free gift on your birthday or a free product when you get to a certain tier. And some even more sort of ambitious things are like events, access to exclusive events and access to exclusive community and stuff like that. So with that, let's look at a brand called Third Love. They just launched this loyalty program. I really like what they did with it. It's mostly transactional in nature, so there's not a ton of sort of emotional reward to it, but it's interesting to see how they progress through it. So they originally started with offering 10% discounts that targeted first-time buyers. A lot of direct-to-consumer brands do this. You sign up for the newsletter, you get 10% off. What they ended up learning was that wasn't really effective for them beyond just generating some near-term gains. And what was more productive for them was leaning into bundling discounts. So what I mean by that is, their example is you get $40 off if you buy 4 bras or more. You get $40 off your purchase. And so what I like about that is they discovered that their customers had a certain purchase behavior. They would buy 1 bra, they would try it on, they would like the comfort, they'd love the fit, and then come back and buy 2 to 3 more. So they figured they'd design a loyalty program around encouraging repeat behavior and increasing the AOV of that repeat behavior. And actually, they ended up removing the first-time customer discount. And I really like that as well because if you're considering offering a discount to first-time customers, it's fine. Just consider the expectation that you're setting with a customer the first time they buy from you. And evaluate if you can consider to offer that customer discounts throughout their lifetime relationship with your company. So it kind of starts to set this expectation of discounting products up front. And you're starting to see a lot of brands that just won't offer discounts at all, and they'll lean more into these types of sort of bundling discounts and stuff like that. So they just rolled out their updated loyalty program that was really designed around this type of behavior they saw. And what's interesting is they're actually doing tiers explicitly by lifetime spend. So this is customer lifetime value, 3 different tiers. And they clearly understood what the different values of customers were at those certain levels of lifetime spend, and they made sure to reward them at those tiers for those things. So I want to move on real quick into this other topic of community. This is much different than a loyalty program, but it's basically a way to build a really strong, loyal customer base. You'll hear the term emotional loyalty tossed around a lot. This is really sort of the glue behind the community. And it's why customers sort of subscribe to a community and get engaged and get involved. But it is kind of an abstract concept. There's no sort of like good things to research around how to build emotional loyalty. A lot of it's really like strategy based and doesn't provide clear tactics to do it. So hopefully I can help shine a little bit of light on some of that and some things that we've seen some people do and what's been effective for them. But also this is something you should be doing in like the earliest stages, and it can be free to do as well. And it really helps build that customer value exchange that I was talking about earlier on. So Glossier has been kind of like the epitome of community brand building. So some of you may recognize this. This is Into the Gloss, which is their editorial. And this is not their e-commerce platform. This is not their Shopify store. This is how they started. They launched this in 2010. All content, all articles with a community forum behind it. They didn't release their first product line until 2014. By the time they were ready to launch their first product, they had a really engaged audience that served as their focus groups to figure out what to build and what to sell. Super smart, and they continue to sort of work this into their product development cycle. So you'll notice very obviously they solicit feedback from their community on what to build next, what to release on their marketplace next. And they get tons and tons of engagement from it, and it really helps them inform what their customers want. And so they sort of adopted this ethos of making their customers stakeholders in their brand. They don't just, let them know that they've been heard, but they actually involve them in the design process and get their feedback. And then they tailor their products to those customers. And this customer base that engages with them in this manner makes up for about 79 to 90% of their total sales. It's pretty great how they've been able to do this, and they've kind of been the epitome of this sort of like emotional loyalty concept that gets tossed around a lot. Now they do it through content. You don't have to do it through content strategy. Content strategies are pretty hard to do, but there's other ways to do it. And sort of, it's all about establishing a core function to actively solicit feedback from customers, place a priority on channels of feedback, opening up those channels, and operationalizing it. So you start to involve customers and stakeholders in your brand, and involve them sort of in the creation of your brand and your products. And that's what I want to talk about next. But if you're curious, Third Love, they use Yotpo for their loyalty program, and Glossier uses Discuss for their community forum. They both offer Shopify integrations. Great. Okay, let's talk about feedback. So I want to talk about a few tactics you can do pretty easily to sort of create this feedback motion we were talking about, soliciting feedback, involving customers, in the creation of your products and brands. So recently, I was speaking with a friend of ours, John and I were, my co-founder over there. She works as a CMO at Amcumen. They're about 10 employees. They're a direct-to-consumer startup out of Salt Lake City. They make performance lotions for athletes that quickens recovery time. And we don't solicit like pull quotes or anything like that. We simply, ask people, what does customer feedback mean to your brand? And what she said was pretty great. It's at the scale that we operate, being able to operationalize quickly and learn quickly is the only reason why we will or won't succeed in this world. And this is something that I've noticed between brands that are kind of experiencing this big point of growth versus brands that have been kind of stagnating at a current growth cycle is sort of this mindset around operationalizing around customer feedback and integrating it into the DNA of your brand. We've heard different versions of this from different brands, but this is really what lends itself to great growth and building a really, really strong retention strategy with customers. And it can be free to do, which is great, at least until you need to scale it. So if you're early on and you're just starting out, what I would recommend doing is just start by personally reaching out to every single customer after they buy your products. You can do it by email, and just make sure to time it right and make it personal as well. So you want to sort of get them while they're experiencing your product, after they've unboxed it, they've had some time with it, and ask them questions. Ask them if they got everything that they expected to get, if there was anything wrong, if they have any suggestions. And you can even get an understanding for what resonated about your brand or your products with them. And so you can start to get an understanding for why your community or why your early buyers really like your brands or products. And that can be really something that's super valuable in establishing the voice of your brand. The other thing is to start developing a cadence around this. So this is kind of like the next step. So what I mean by that is do this on the regular, solicit feedback from every single customer, get in the habit of doing it at a specific time once you've nailed down like what that perfect moment is. Because if you get those things right, you'll get really good response rates. Collect it, organize it, and start to gather your teams around it. And figure out, where, how, and what to react to and how to respond. And this is where you start to sort of like iteratively improve your products and your brand and your marketing and your customer service all around the customer. And this is what will lead to ultimately more satisfied experiences, more satisfied customers, and this has a net effect of being an acquisition channel for you once you can start to use it as social proof. So using it as social proof allows you to basically create an organic referral channel. You can do it through social, you can do it through a review platform on your site. Just really encourage customers, once you feel confident in the product you're selling, that you have satisfied customers, to share their feedback publicly, and that helps build trust and credibility to first-time customers with your brand. A quick little stat around that is actually 63% of consumers are more likely to purchase from a site if it has product reviews and ratings. So it's obviously got big impact, and review platforms are another great way to sort of show that feedback as social proof. And I'm going to jump into a quick case study on Allbirds here. So it's a pretty simple one. I mean, they get a lot of great feedback, and they host it on their site on every product page. But what they do a really, really good job of is providing a third-party perspective into comfort and fit. And so if I'm wavering on the size of the product or anything, like if I'm buying a gift for somebody, these reviews kind of serve as an unbiased opinion to me as a consumer that this is going to make a great gift for somebody, or that I need to size down or size up in this shoe. So beyond just sort of the normal reviews they have, they've kind of peppered in a few around gifting. And then at the top, they have this interesting little user experience that shows you, based on customer reviews, this shoe fits small, it fits just right, or it fits large. And that goes a long way to building credibility with the brand. And they're just kind of leaning into the purchase behaviors. Allbirds, one of the biggest point of friction for them when customers are on their site is sizing and fit. And the second sort of most common point of friction is around gifting and buying a gift for somebody. So they've leaned into that to help provide confidence to the shoppers here around sort of those two big points of friction. So there's really a myriad of additional channels you can use for collecting feedback. Social channels are great. You can use Facebook groups. You can use Instagram polls even. Those are great ways to gather sort of crowd-based feedback. But I would also make sure to gather it from your customer service interactions. That's another great spot to do it too. So this is incredibly helpful information that can help you quickly identify issues, surface it to the team, understand if there was an issue with a product or something like that, and lead to more positive customer experiences. So there's a few tools that I recommend here. If you're thinking about doing NPS surveys to gathering feedback, Tiny Feedback is a fairly affordable NPS Shopify survey tool. NPS platforms can be really expensive. Now, if you're trying to solicit feedback via email, you get a lot better results and response rates if it's more personal. NPS surveys only kind of give you like sort of a high-level picture of how customers are feeling. It doesn't help you unpack the why. But it can be great in filtering who you ask for a review of your product. So one tactic that's pretty common is to segment customers who give you an 8 or higher NPS score and asking those folks for product reviews. Klaviyo is a great tool for email automation. It's a marketing email automation platform, but the thing that I like is they allow you to create automated flows. So if you want to do personalized emails, you can also inject personalized customer details into the templates, and it makes that reach out feel a lot more personal. But they even have flows that allow you to basically wait until a customer purchases, wait X amount of days, send an email out to them. If they don't respond, send a follow-up email, and you can customize those to send out as many as you want. And they have a bunch of different behaviors that you can trigger them from, so it's kind of great. For reviews, we talked about Yapo, but I actually recommend JudgeMe. Very similar, way cheaper, same feature set, same capabilities. So we've seen a few people actually migrating off Yapo to JudgeMe because of the price point and very, very, very similar feature set. Thank you. So any one of these topics can really be your own meetup. Kind of wanted to provide a high-level overview, but there's so much to learn and understand within each. So maybe a topic for another one. But I'll be uploading this presentation to that link. That's it. I'll take questions now. If anybody has any, we can just network if anybody does.
Hello, thank you. My name is Maria. I'm with Forever Tattoo. I have an online Shopify store called Forever Tattoo. Forever Tattoo. I did a webinar this morning with, I think his name is John Mack, and he was introducing e-commerce HQ. And I don't know if you guys have heard about that platform, but I just wanted to know if you guys had some, if you knew about that platform and some differences between Shopify and e-commerce HQ.
Thanks. No, I haven't. I haven't heard of e-commerce HQ. How's it different than Shopify?
I don't know. I watched the webinar this morning. My guy who was kind of pitching it.
I watched a webinar this morning, and I didn't get all the differences, but they were just saying that a lot of people were jumping off of Shopify onto it, and they are able to get more information. It looked like they had to add stuff for like retargeting and different things, integrations.
Yeah, I've been kind of seeing a trend with sort of new e-commerce platforms coming into the market to kind of take sort of the SMB sliver that Shopify is they're kind of moving upstream, moving more enterprise with Shopify Plus. So you're seeing things like Elliot is another one that just came to the market. They tout it as like a no-code e-commerce platform. I think we'll start seeing more of those. But yeah, I mean, I'm interested to check it out. I don't know much about it, but it's definitely a trend I'm seeing for sure.
Yeah, just to add to that, as I walk over here to our next question, I have not heard of them either, but I know that there are a lot of people trying to get into the e-commerce platform, so I also expect to see more and more of those pop up. So my advice would be to test it out, make sure that it makes sense, because hopping from one platform to the other is a lot riskier if you don't know what you're doing. But it also can impact your SEO. Every time you change a platform, it can impact your SEO. So be smart about making changes like that, just throwing that out there.
You moved definitely easier. I'm Max. I'm Jade. I'm the founder of PDX app, like the sandwich. So we do text message marketing for like Shopify. And so one question I had is, so I started this company like 2 years ago. So we launched a couple beta routes with a few influencer-based Shopify stores. One girl, she had like 2 million subscribers. We got like 10,000 leads in the first hour. But we got kind of a lot of backlash because we use a lot of chatbots. So I noticed in your presentation you said like customers for human-to-human relationship. However, for convenience factor, like we're not going to be there at 2 a.m., right? So like, I mean, I'm just curious, what's your thoughts about like the difference and when to use human, relationships in customer service, or when to use chatbots in convenience? Like, obviously there should be a handoff, but that's something we faced earlier last year. I was going to ask you your thoughts on that.
I have a lot of thoughts on that. We have a lot of experience there too, and sort of like war stories to talk about with that too. The thing I would say is if it can't sort of like competently respond to a customer problem, it's going to create more of a negative experience than a positive one. So if you're just sort of delaying, if a chatbot is just sort of delaying the customer getting what they need, it's kind of very similar to sort of like going through a phone tree or being put on call waiting. It can be aggravating to some extent. But if it can confidently answer customer questions and it's presented in the right way, it can be very effective for any sort of staff to really focus on the high-value tasks that they need to do. Response times are very important. There is one brand that I really like that has approached like SMS very well, and that's Iris Nova. So they do, it's called Lemonade, is that right? So they're like a food and beverage holding company, Iris Nova, and they're like tech focused. But they have quite a few good articles where they talk about sort of their approach to SMS and a lot of their trials and tribulations with chat and chatbots and sort of the customer outcomes it led to. And they ultimately leaned away from that and they lean more into augmentation. So providing almost like an assistant for the staff on the other end. So they can respond quicker and just better triage things. So that's an interesting one. I do recommend sort of reading up on that one too. Yeah, it's a really tricky subject, but I think more often than not, any chance you can do to put a human on the other end, it's going to be pretty beneficial. Jet Black is another one that Jet Black, they're part of Walmart's store number 8, I think that's right, but it's like their accelerator, and so it's a personal shopper. And it's actually people on the other end, even though they sort of present it as a service. But you text somebody, you text them what you need, and the idea is it will arrive at your door. They'll find it for you, and it'll arrive at your door 2 hours later.
Do they use text marketing for that?
It's still in beta, it's not publicly available. So they kind of faking it until they make it. But yeah, I don't believe they do. I think it's all they're building it all ad hoc too. They have a pretty big team around it. But was it? Oh, was it text marketing? Is that the question?
Yeah.
Yeah, just people can't hear it. So.
Yeah. No, I don't believe it is. Yeah.
So I had a question about kind of crowdsourcing when it comes to customer service and kind of incorporating your top customers to answer questions for other customers, like there's new services like that.
So was the question sort of surfacing most frequently asked questions to other customers to help sort of alleviate some customer service? Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so matching customers to other customers. There's some interesting products that are out there that are sort of like trying to change how reviews are done by matching you to like other brand advocates who have bought the product and getting personal reviews from those. There's actually a company in town, they're fairly small, but they're trying to tackle this. It's called Sidebar. Yotpo has a new solution as well that you can ask a question and the brand will answer it and they'll sort of approve it to be listed. And when you go to the reviews page, there's now this like reviews and questions tab. And so you can see all the other questions other customers have asked to get your questions answered. Test. Yeah, beyond the sidebar, I don't know of many other products in the market that don't do that.
Just to add to that, I think a lot of folks are using social media platforms whenever possible. So we notice a lot of brands now have Facebook groups. And so what they're doing is people are posting questions in those Facebook groups, and then the community is able to answer, where the brand will then come in later when they're there to be able to answer that.
On Facebook groups, but I guess there's no real way to kind of track the performance of these customer reviews, response time versus how much time are they getting to the answer, and are you able to reward the people that are providing these answers adequately to build their loyalty over time?
I think it's a problem solved.
Yeah.
I have a question about, I have a couple questions, but the first question I have is, I currently have a WordPress site with e-commerce, and the themes and everything are they can't be updated anymore, and so I have some IT people helping me, and they suggested Shopify. And so, how is Shopify better at marketing than WordPress? Or what is so special about Shopify? I mean, we're here because of it. I hear Shopify, but what makes it so good? Marketing.
Yeah, I would. So you're on WooCommerce currently?
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a lot of experience with WooCommerce, but I would say the number one thing with Shopify is the ecosystem they've developed. So they definitely have the largest marketplace of any of them with simple solutions. You have multiple choices for if you need email marketing solution, etc., to cater to your needs. So they definitely have the largest kind of support system around them. As far as comparables with WooCommerce around things like pricing and stuff like that, I'm not super familiar with WooCommerce pricing, but yeah, I'd say that's probably the primary thing I would say. I'm sure Alana has some opinions on that too.
So I actually frequent a couple different Facebook groups that are within Portland, and that's one of the most common questions I hear from folks that are getting into e-commerce of like, do I do WordPress or Squarespace or Shopify, BigCommerce or whatever? It's a personal preference. You are going to hear people that are very opinionated about every single one of them. So you're asking us who are Shopify, we're going to promote Shopify more than anything else. I use both. I actually have a client that's on WooCommerce, and I prefer Shopify. For me, it's a security issue. Like every time I get into WooCommerce, I have to update all the plugins, and I pray that it's not going to break on me. So I think generally it's a personal preference. I agree with Max though about the ecosystem within a lot of the apps that are within Shopify. The apps or the plugins that you get with WordPress, they've been around for so long, and so it's hard to tell what's legitimate and what's not, and what you can trust or what you can't trust. Shopify regularly reviews their apps, for the most part, I think. And you guys can talk about that too more, but they constantly are checking on them and making sure that they're still up to date. And so it's a little bit better, I think, from that perspective. When you talk about themes for marketing, the platform itself isn't marketing for you. So you have to market. So I want to clarify that piece of it. But when you're talking about the layouts, the SEO, the way the blogs are written, like the structure of the theme itself, they're all going to be comparable. It's going to be a preference for you. It's just for me, I prefer Shopify over anything else.
So yes, I'm older, okay, so I'm 59, but I was able to get my products up on Amazon. That was a whole experience. Amazon, it's FBA, blah, 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 right? I did all that. So, and I'm experimenting, so I'm like, okay, so I'm going to create my own Shopify site. So I loaded all the inventory, did all that stuff, and then I just got stuck. Why is it hard? Or am I just... dumb. I don't know. It's just why it just doesn't seem user friendly to me. So I've been frustrated lately, and I guess my frustration is I don't want to spend the money, right? You know, like to fix all the plugins and this and that, and it's just the time too. It's like, why can't I just pop in there and do stuff? And that's what I don't like about WordPress. You know, bots for attacking, you know, all this stuff, and it seems like you have to be a genius to do this, or else just hand it to someone. Is that just the way it is? Sorry to ramble.
No, and I won't take too long on this because we could also talk afterwards if you like, but in case others are experiencing that, I'll address it briefly. For me, what I have found is that for most folks, they are able to get in and set up a Shopify store fairly simple. When it gets to be more complicated is when you're starting to add the nuances that are your business that is not maybe common for other businesses, or if you're adding certain apps or whatever. So my recommendation is to spend time and money, have someone help you learn how to do it yourself, and then manage it on your own. So don't feel like you have to do it on your own. There are people that can help you, but that way it'll at least get you started. I don't know if you had anything else to add.
Yeah, I was going to say one of the other benefits of Shopify is they probably have one of the strongest partner networks as well. So, you know, based on your size, there's plenty of partners for every size of business who you can hire to help you out with development and those types of things. And it's much easier to find support and help for that with Shopify than it is for platforms like WooCommerce.
Any other questions?
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for your time today. My question is in regards to page load time. Like, I'm at the point where I'm really trying to keep my cost per customer down by, you know, keeping an eye on page load time. And I really like all the apps that you were mentioning today. So could you speak briefly on keeping my page load time down without clunking up my site and adding all these, you know, chat bots and, you know, contact us now, pop-ups, etc.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you definitely want to limit the number of plugins that you have, the number of pop-ups that you have, because they can sort of bog down the experience. It's as far as page load speed time. Again, I think Alana's going to know a little bit more than me on this one, but things like optimizing, you know, any sort of media or anything like that that you have on your site can go a long way for that type of stuff.
The other thing I would add, so when you talk about apps that you're going to keep building on and adding onto it, remember that even when you delete those apps, many apps remain there, so you have to go back in and delete the code. If you don't feel comfortable deleting the code, tell the apps to do it. They will. And if they don't, they should. But speed is a huge factor when you talk about the amount that you weight it down with apps. So when you're evaluating all the different ones, really research it and decide what's the best thing for you before you install, and then clean it up. As Max said, you know, the media that you have on your site, making sure that you're not having so much media on one page. I've actually seen folks that will load like huge images and like their entire page is just images. It's not even product, it's just images. And it slows it down dramatically. Shopify is actually really good about picking the right size image for what you're trying to display and like how big it actually is. So you can actually do like a 20,000 or a 2048 by 2048. I usually recommend squares so it's consistent, and it should pick the right size for you. But if you're looking at it and you're like it's not because every theme might be different, then you need to really select the right size image. So that's usually the biggest thing I see is images and apps.
Does Shopify do any compression when you upload assets?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like it usually will. If you were to like inspect your browser, you're going to see like a multiple different sizes of your images, so they will compress it now. But depending on the theme that you have, that's where you're going to get into a little bit iffy stuff because most themes that are on the App Store have gone through that process. It's when you go external that you can't always trust it.
I guess my question is for you then again. Do you have any recommendations for like, the quickest loading themes? I've gone through a few different themes before, And I'm currently considering the popular turbo theme from Out of the Sandbox. And then maybe if you could speak a little bit more about page load times, like I compress all my images, and I have a lot of low media. I've had like I'm always looking at it like on GT metrics and stuff like that. And I've even hired other people to like do JavaScript parsing, etc., whatever that one gets called. I don't know. I pay other people to do that. So anything other than what I just mentioned would be great, but if not, it's fine.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Turbo from Out of the Sandbox. So if you have not seen it, it's a pretty good resource for you. I've heard from folks that customer support from them has dropped a little bit, so just be prepared for that. But Turbo was built to be fast, like that is the point of it. They also have Flex that just come out. I haven't played with it yet, but I have other friends who have, and they seem to enjoy it as well. I don't know if that's speed, but they enjoy it. With regards to page speed, I'm just going to address this really quickly because I think what I often hear from people is, oh, I have to get my speed down, I have to get it down 3 seconds or people are going to leave. Chill. Honestly, like you're probably fine. If you've done that much work, spend your time in other areas of your business. SEO is usually the #1 reason why people want to decrease their speed because it looks poorly on Google, and page speed is a factor in ranking, but it is a small factor. There are so many other things that you need to do for your business. So what I recommend is try it, move on to something else, come back to it. Move on to something else, come back to it, because you're always going to have to revisit every single time. But don't invest a ton of energy.
So this isn't a question. So we actually use Turbo and we use multiple a review app, have a checkup, have Facebook, analytics, all this different stuff, so we can exchange information and we can chat.
Any other questions?
So I work for a small business and we're a retailer, and it seems like the presentation you made was more tailored for people who have their own product. So how can we apply these techniques for a retailer? And as a follow-up question, as a small business, how do we compete with like the big companies like Amazon that can offer free shipping and 24-hour, yada yada. Like, as a small business, I feel like the resources are not there to do that. So how do we compete with those kind of big box stores?
Yeah. I mean, as a retailer, the same general concepts apply. I mean, the things around customer service are still very important, customer loyalty, things like that. Following up with customers, generating a lot of that feedback. So it's definitely still applicable for a retailer, and these are similar tactics that even large retailers like Nordstrom and stuff like that deploy. I'd say as far as Amazon, one of the big things we see is differentiated product offering. So what I mean by that is if you sell products on both Amazon and within your store, or you even see competitive products on Amazon, is basically offering a differentiated product, whether that's bundling products together, and sometimes you can sell them at a competitive price when you do that, or selling more premium, higher quality product, because that's kind of what customers expect when they come to your store. Generally, it's more like discretionary spending than buying sort of for convenience sake. Amazon's really hard to compete with on a price factor. It's always going to be really tough. But yeah, I mean, even brands like Casper sort of famously created a completely different, cheaper mattress to sell on Amazon, and then they're able to use Amazon as sort of an acquisition channel for customers that buy into their brand and want a more premium product. So you can actually use it as almost like this lead gen strategy if that's of interest to you. And we see folks who If they sell products that bundle well together, they'll sell individual products at a cheap price point on Amazon. And then when they get that first time customer hooked, the customer comes to their site to either buy a bundle as a gift for a friend or buy more of the product for their needs. So
We've got time for one more question. All right, well, Max will be here for a little bit longer. We've got about 10 more minutes before they try to kick us out of here, but please feel free to grab some more food on your way out. And thanks so much for coming.